Today we're going to start one of my very favorite units, and that's using a program called Google SketchUp, which is great for designing buildings and other things, which makes it an architecture program. Some of the kinds of things that we'll be able to do once we learn how to use this program are this. Here's a SketchUp model that I made of a building that you might recognize if you've been around Baltimore or if you've gone to school in different places in Baltimore. This is a school I taught at before Baltimore Community High School. This is on the Lake Clifton campus. This was Doris M. Johnson, a school that closed. And you'll see that I've done a full 3D model of the front of the building with a lot of detail. So that's one model I've made. Another model I've made is this. This is sort of like a dream house type scenario I made. So I created the mountains and the hills and the water. And then I was also able to come through here and create sort of a mansion that goes along with it. And one more that I worked on a couple years ago. Another structure that you might recognize. This is, of course, the Simpsons house, and I did it as best I could, exactly as the Simpsons house is. I even have the oil stain here on the driveway. So I had a lot of fun making these models, and I hope that you really enjoy it too. A lot of my students get frustrated at first because it can be difficult at first, but as they go through, they actually end up having a very good time. So of course my first step is to go find Google SketchUp. So I'll go to my Start menu, All Programs, and let's see. There it is, Google SketchUp 8. Yours might say Google SketchUp 7. That works just fine too. So I'm going to click on that, and the program will open. Okay, so here we are in Google SketchUp. Depending on what version you're using, you're going to see a lady or a guy right here. The reason why this person is here is to show you how big the things you're making are compared to an average-sized person. So that's going to give you what's called perspective. So if you make a house that is absolutely gigantic compared to this person, you know that your house is too large. Or if you make a house that's not as big as the person, you know your house is too small. Don't get confused by all the buttons that you see here on the interface. Many of them we won't even need at first, and eventually you'll be able to use all of them. If you don't see this toolbar over here on the left, we're going to have to put that there, and that's simple. We just have to go to View, Toolbars, and we make sure that the large tool set is clicked on, and that'll make these buttons over here appear. And real quickly, I'm going to go through some of the main buttons that we're going to be using for all of our models. So I'm going to start up here at the top. This is our select arrow. So if I ever want to select something, I want to select her, I click on her, and now she's selected. I can tell because now she's highlighted in blue. This is our line tool, which obviously is for drawing lines. Our rectangle tool for drawing rectangles and squares. Circle tool. Arc tool will draw curved lines. Our eraser tool erases things. Our tape measure will let us measure how long something is. Our paint bucket will let us paint things. This is a very important button called the push-pull button, and I'll get to that in just a second. This is our move button for if I want to move something. If I need to rotate something, if something's facing the wrong direction, I use my rotate button. Offset button is another important one that I'll get to in just a moment. And then I come to probably the most important buttons here on the entire interface. This first one is called the orbit button. And if I click the orbit button and then use my mouse, I can move all around my model in all directions. I can also do this without clicking the button, just by holding my middle mouse wheel button in. If I hold the wheel down, I can move around just the same. The hand is called the pan tool, and that's going to let me go sort of from side to side, back and forth. And the magnifying glass, as you might have guessed, is the zoom button, which will let me zoom in and out from my model. Once again, there's a shortcut for this, and I can simply roll my mouse wheel in and out to zoom in and out. So I suggest that you get used to doing that. That's sort of the introduction. Our task for today is to create a very simple house. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing I'm going to do is sort of get oriented the way that I want to be. So I've zoomed out a little bit away from her, and I've used my orbit, or my mouse wheel, to get sort of a view where I'm looking down on her. I want to point out one thing real quick before we dive in, and that are these lines. You see a red line, a green line, and a blue line. The red line is sort of going exactly side to side. the green line is going exactly the opposite direction. It's making a right angle with the red line. The blue line is actually going straight up and down. So those are our 3 dimensions: left to right, forward, backward, and up and down. And that's going to become important as we move forward. I'm going to go ahead and grab the rectangle button. And whenever you have a tool in SketchUp, there are 2 ways you can use it. You can hold the button down and drag to create whatever it is. But the better way to use the mouse in SketchUp is to click and let go one time. And now as I move my mouse, the rectangle is built. This will make a lot of your tasks much easier. So I highly recommend that that's the method you use. You click one time and move the mouse, and then when you've got the shape that you want, you click again. And that will sort of finalize the shape. I can tell that it's here because it's turned gray. Now, I'm actually going to press Control-Z to undo that shape. Remember, Control-Z undoes, and that will be literally your best friend while you're making these designs in SketchUp. But what I want to do is I want to be very precise with my rectangle. So I'm going to click one time, and I'm beginning to make my rectangle. But I'm going to tell my rectangle exactly how large I want it to be. So I'm going to type 100, and I'm going to press that button right there. It's the actual comma. It looks like a comma or punctuation mark button. And you'll see down in the right-hand corner that it puts that little slash at the end. That's telling it I want it to be 100 feet. If I don't press that button, I'm going to get a rectangle that is in 100 inches because its standard is inches. So I want it to be 100 feet. I press comma, 100 feet. So I want this rectangle to be 100 feet long and 100 feet wide. Okay, so it's going to be a square. I'm going to press Enter, and I've got my square. This is actually going to end up being my yard for my house. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and grab the rectangle once more, and this one I'm just going to sort of do on my own. So I'm just going to click, make a shape about this big, somewhere in the middle of the yard, and I'm going to click again to finalize it. And here's where it starts to get really interesting. This tool that I mentioned before, the push-pull. This is such a great tool. When I click on it, what it's going to allow me to do is take this rectangle in the middle and pull it from 2 dimensions into 3. So I'm going to click one time, I'm going to move my mouse, and you'll see that all of a sudden, that 2-dimensional flat rectangle is now a 3-dimensional prism or a cube. Okay, but once more, I'm going to be very, very precise about this. I'm going to press Control-Z to undo that. You can tell what you're highlighting based on those little blue circles. So I'm going to get in the middle. I'm going to click one time. I'm going to begin to raise the rectangle up, and I'm going to tell it that I want it to be 30 feet tall. I'm going to press Enter. And there, I've got a 30-foot tall house, which, if you look closely, is about the right size compared to our little person. Okay, so right now what I have isn't looking very house-like, and that's going to be an easy fix. The first thing I'm going to do to make it look like a house is put a roof on it. So I'm going to go ahead and orbit up so that I can see, sort of looking straight down at the house. This will make things much easier. And I'm going to use one of those tools that I mentioned before. This is a really neat tool. It's called the offset tool. And I'm going to make sure when I take the offset tool that my little red cursor is on sort of the outside of the house. There I am. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click, and I'm going to move my mouse, and what the offset does is it draws the same shape as the one that I've clicked on, but it could be smaller or larger. And this is going to have a lot of neat uses later on as we get better at this program. So I'm going to move it out just a little bit like this, and I'm going to click. The reason why I do that is because, you know, if you think about it, the roof of a house should come off of the walls a bit. That's to keep the rain from running down the side of my house and ruining the house, rotting the wood or getting in the brick, and that kind of thing. Okay, so there's the start of my roof. The next step I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my push-pull again, and I'm going to bring this little middle part up just a little bit, just a smidge, and I'm going to bring the outside up just a smidge. And that's beginning to look more and more like a roof. Okay. One thing I need to do is I need to get rid of these sort of this inside rectangle. So for the first time, I'm going to go ahead and use my eraser tool. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to click to erase these lines. You can actually hold the button down, get them all highlighted if you want, and let go, and all of a sudden they're gone. Perfect. Okay, we're almost there. I'm going to take my line tool, and I'm going to find the middle of my roof. And if I slide my mouse around, you're going to see that it's going to help me find the middle. Whenever it turns in that little blue circle and says midpoint, I can be sure that I'm in the middle. And that's very important because depending on what angle you're looking at, it might not look exactly like the middle, but when it says it is, trust that it is. I'm going to click the mouse one time and let go. And I'm going to move my mouse down. And what I want to see is this red line. That tells me I'm going exactly straight across. That's very important. A neat trick that I can do right now is if I hold down the Shift key while I'm moving my mouse, that red line is going to turn bold, and now it's going to keep me locked in going straight down. Okay, and I got to the end. I'm going to click, and I have a line that's running exactly down the middle of my roof. That's very important because what we're going to do right now, oops, I got rid of one of my walls, and I'll fix that in just a minute. But for right now, I'm going to grab the Move tool, and Move tool does exactly what you think it does. It moves things. But if I move this middle line, I'm going to click on it once, I'm going to move my mouse, it's going to move the line and take everything with it. Now, here's another very important thing. I want to move this line straight upwards, okay? And I know that I'm moving straight upwards because of the blue dotted line, okay? That's telling me, just like the blue axis, that I'm going straight up and down. So once again, I'm going to hold down Shift. And now I can only go straight up and down, okay? I'm going to move it up about that far, and I'm going to click the mouse one more time, and I have a pretty slick looking roof. Let's go ahead and fix this wall while we're at it. Looks like when I erased those lines earlier, I must have accidentally erased the line that connects that point with that point over there. And if they're not connected, I can't have that wall. I have to have everything connected in order for there to be a wall. So I'm going to take my pen tool, my line tool. I'm going to make sure that I'm on the very end point. I'm going to click, drag it straight over, make sure I'm on the end point over there. The red line is a very good sign. Click again, and my wall is back. Okay, so we're looking more and more house-like. I'm actually liking the way it's looking. Of course, a house wouldn't be a house without doors and windows, so let's go ahead and do some of that. I am going to move, I'll call this the front of the house. And I'm just basically, for now, I'm going to do some very basic doors and windows, and we're just going to use a rectangle tool. So I'm going to click the rectangle, and I'm going to basically just draw a square here. And here's the cool part. If I take my select arrow, I'm actually going to draw there. I've got the whole thing selected and nothing else selected. Here's a really neat trick. I am going to take my Move tool, but this time I don't want to move the window. I want to make a copy of the window. So what I need to do is press one time and let go, the Control button. And when I do, that little plus sign is going to appear. And I'm going to now click once on my window. I'm going to move my mouse down. I'm going to go straight down, which I know because of that dotted blue line. And I'm going to click. Now I have a window that is exactly the same size and exactly underneath my first one. And I'm going to go one step further. I'm going to get my select arrow again. I'm going to highlight both windows. Grab my Move tool. I'm going to press the Control button one time. And now I'm going to grab the edge of my windows. Click one time. Move my mouse over. And I want to keep that red dotted line. I'm actually going to hold down the Shift key. And I'm going to move them both straight over to the side. And I'm going to click. Now I have 4 windows, all the exact same size, exactly how I want. Now, there are a couple of things I could do to actually turn them into windows. One thing I could do is to click on one of them and press the delete key on the keyboard. And that's just going to delete that rectangle, and you'll see that I can actually look inside of my house. But probably a better way to create the windows, I'm going to press Control-Z to undo what I've just done. I'm going to grab my paint bucket. This is really cool. And my materials window is going to pop up. And what's cool about this is I'm not just going to be painting in colors, I'm going to be painting using different kinds of material. Right now, I've got wood selected. Well, I don't want a wooden window. I'm going to click down here, and I'm going to find one of my materials that's called translucent. Translucent is another word for see-through. So, obviously, my windows should probably be see-through. And I've got all kinds of different types of glass here. I've got different colored glass. I've got sort of this glass that makes me think of sort of a corner bar, so I'm not going to be using that. I'm just going to grab one of these nice blue pieces of glass. I'm going to click on each of my windows, and you'll see that now it is see-through, but it looks more like glass. All right, everything inside has that blue tint that glass would do. All right, so now I have windows. The next step, of course, is my front door. But before I make my front door, I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to create sort of some steps leading up to my front door. I'm going to take my rectangle tool. And what you're going to learn as you use this program more and more is that it's all about drawing flat shapes and turning them three-dimensional. So I'm just going to draw on the ground, starting on the very edge of the house. That's very important. A little rectangle. Okay. Then I'm going to come up. Actually, I should probably zoom in some to get a better view. I'm going to come inside this rectangle, and I'm going to draw another rectangle. Just like that. All right, so you're wondering why I would do that. Well, it's because I can take my push-pull. And I'm going to pull that step out. I'm going to pull that step out a little less. And all of a sudden, I have some steps in front of my house. Just like that. Okay, so let's make a door. I'm going to do a simple rectangular door. So let's get our rectangle tool. I'm going to draw a decent sized house. I'm going to do my best to make sure it goes all the way across the step. Okay, and I'm going to grab my materials. And there's different materials I could use. This one I'd probably just, for now, just use some sort of wooden material. But you know what? I'm not going to do it yet, and I'll tell you why. If I start painting everything on the house right now, it's going to slow down my program. It's going to slow it down a lot. So I'm going to save the painting for the very end. There are a couple of more things that I want to do to the house before I'm done with it. Okay, so here's what I want to do. I want a garage for my house, I want a patio for my house, and I want a pool in my backyard. But you might be asking, there's definitely not enough room for all those things in this little yard. No problem. We could definitely make the yard a little bit bigger. And if you hadn't figured it out yet, we're going to use the move tool. So I'm going to take my move tool. I am going to get on the very edge of the yard, click one time. And I'm just going to move it out. Once again, very, very important that as I'm moving, I see that red dotted line. I want it to be going straight out. And I can do that for all of these. I'm actually just going to do probably 3 of them. All right, once again, oops, see? That black dotted line is not straight over it. That's going to cause a lot of problems for me later on. I've got to make sure. There it is. Red dotted line. I'm going to hold down Shift to lock it on there. Click. And I need a backyard for my pool. Oops, I guess I didn't actually click when I thought I had, so I'm still moving the side of my yard. That's not good. Let's see if I can find the red line. You know what? I'm having a hard time. So what I'm going to do to sort of stop moving this is I'm going to press Escape, and everything's going to go back to the way it was. And now I can go back and try it again. So if you ever started to do something, you started to move something or to push-pull something or whatever, you can always press Escape in the middle of it, and that will end that operation, and things will go back to the way they were. All right, good. Red line. I'm going to click for real this time. All right, there we go. And I just need my backyard. Click. Straight back. This time I want to see green because I'm going in that direction. Back. Click. There we go. Much more room to work with. Okay. First things first, garage. Easy peasy. All right. I'm going to click my rectangle. Go to the side of my house. I'm going to draw a rectangle on the side of the house. It should be smaller than the side of the house, mind you. Okay, it's not going to go all the way to the edge. That would create issues. I'm going to click. And now I can push-pull that out. And I've got a garage. I'm going to leave it to you to do a couple of things. The garage should have a roof very similar to this kind of roof. Well, we've already learned how to do that, so you can do that yourself. Just draw a line down the middle, lift it up with the Move tool. Also, you should draw a door on the front of the garage for the car to go into. Okay, next step, patio. And I'll show you what I mean when I say patio. I am going to draw a rectangle on the side of the house. A pretty small one this time. Something like that. Click, and I'm going to pull that out. Gonna pull that out. And this is kind of like the awning for my patio. Okay. Now that awning as it is probably wouldn't work. It'd probably collapse under its own weight. That's not really gonna do what I want it to do. So I'm gonna teach you a couple of quick tricks to make it look right. I'm gonna take my select tool. And I'm gonna click on my yard. And I'm gonna right click and do this thing called hide. Now the yard is still there, but I sort of made it invisible, which will make my next step a lot easier. I'm going to move my model like this so I can get like right down underneath it. I am going to draw a circle. So how this works is and actually let's zoom in a little bit so I can make a smaller circle. I'm going to click one time, move my mouse out just a little bit, click again, and I've got a circle. And you might have guessed, I'm going to put a circle on the other side that's the exact same, so you'll remember our trick. I'm going to select the circle, get my Move tool, I'm going to press Control one time, and that turns it from Move to copy. Click the circle, we're going to go straight across. I'm holding down Shift to lock it down, and I'm going to get it as close to the same distance away as I can. Perfect. Got my two circles. Now what I'm going to do, get a view kind of like this. Grab my push-pull. And this is why it was so important that we click one time instead of holding the mouse down. I'm going to click once on my circle. I'm going to pull it down. But what I'm going to do is take my mouse and I'm going to move my mouse to the very edge of the house down here. And when I do that, I am telling that circle that I'm pulling down that I want you to go exactly as much down as the bottom of the house. Click. Perfect. One more time. I click one time. I move my mouse to the very bottom of the house, and I click, and now my awning has columns to support it. And if you're worried about my yard being gone, not a problem. I just go to Edit, and I'm going to go to Unhide, and I'm going to unhide all. And there I go. My yard is back. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to pause the video and I'm going to make a pool, because I want you to practice this kind of stuff on your own, and I want to see if you can figure out how to make it on your own. So I'm going to pause the recording, make a pool, and I'm going to be right back. So here it is. There is my in-ground pool. I think if you put your mind to it, you'll figure out what I did. I'm going to give you a hint. At one point, the tools that I used the rectangle tool, I used the offset tool, and I used the push-pull tool. Okay? So now my house is basically looking structurally the way I want it to look. Of course, it's not looking very house-like right now because it's all gray and white. So it's time to start painting. I'm going to point out some of the important materials that you might use. Of course, translucent is good for windows. We have bricks and cladding. So I like to make brick houses. So bricks and cladding are good for the sides of your house. There is one called roofing, which, believe it or not, is good for the roof. It has shingles and that kind of thing. There's even one for water. So believe me, the inside of my pool is going to have some water. There is one for stone. So maybe my steps will be stone. I think the outside of my pool will be stone. I think the columns coming off of my patio will be stone. And you'll see there's plenty of other ones. Tile. Vegetation is going to be my grass. Okay. Wood, I said, would be my door. So I want you to experiment painting the model. I'm going to pause again, and I'm going to paint mine, and we'll come back just to finish up together. I'm going to pause my video, and I'll be right back. Here we are. I've done a couple of things while I was paused. I have added a roof to my garage, and I have painted pretty much everything. And I actually went ahead and made my garage open, just because I think it looks kind of cool. I have painted almost everything. I want to show you a couple of neat little tricks about painting. I realized as I was going through that I probably didn't paint the bottom of my patio is still white. Unless I can't remember what material I used to paint the rest of it. Not a problem. This little eyedropper right here, I'm going to grab the eyedropper. I'm going to click on that, and it's going to automatically select the same material. That's really good if you pick a color and you just forget which one, or you don't feel like going back and finding it. And as we were there, I just realized I did not paint the underside of my roof. Okay, so I need to take my eyedropper. I'm going to click on the shingles that I picked, and I'm going to paint the inside of the roof. Because when I'm done, there should be no white anywhere on this model. Everything should have some sort of texture. Okay? So I think for our first try, we have made a very nice house. I hope you're enjoying yourself and you're experimenting. And I'll be here to help and have fun. I almost forgot to show you how to save. Okay, so I'm going to go to File. And of course, I could just go to Save As like I would in any other program. But what that's going to do is it's going to send me this model. It's going to be a full 3D model that can only be opened up in SketchUp. It's going to be kind of big, and it's kind of bulky for me to go through and open each one of these things up. So I'm going to show you how to save a picture of this house. Now, the problem once I have the picture is I won't be able to rotate around and see the front and back, this and that. But that's okay. For now, I just want to see the picture of your house. I'm going to try my best to get this sort of centered in the screen. I'm going to go to File again, but this time I'm going to go to Export. And I'm going to export a 2D graphic. Now, 2D means flat, so I'm going to basically be producing a picture of my house. I'm going to click 2D graphic. And now you're just going to save it like you normally would. You're going to go to your folder, change the name so it says your name and house. So mine would be Mr. Eames' house. And right now the file type that we're using is portable network graphic, or a PNG file. PNG is another kind of picture file. It works just as good as a JPEG. So PNG is fine. So I'm going to type in, actually I can't have that period there, Mr. Eames' house. I'm going to make sure I'm in my folder. I'm going to export. And now that's what you're going to send to me. But listen carefully. You should also save the model itself. So you should do the normal save as and put that in your folder as well, just to have. Because once I turn it into a picture, I can't open it back up and change it. It is forever that picture. That picture cannot be changed. If I save this model, I can still open that back up and work on it. So that way you have sort of two copies to work with. And if you realize that you left something out, you can go back and work on it. So once again, I'm going to call this Mr. Eames, and this time I'm going to say house model. And this is a SketchUp file, an SKP file. So only someone with SketchUp on their computer could actually open this up. And you're going to find that most people don't have SketchUp on their computers. So when I go to my documents here, and I go into my folder, I'm going to have two different files. I'm going to have the picture, and I'm going to have the model. Here, the PNG file is the picture. This little SketchUp icon is the SketchUp model. You need to send me the PNG file. If you send me a SketchUp model, I won't even look at it. I'm just going to give it a 0. So please, send me the PNG file. Any computer in the world can open this up and take a look at it. And you're done.